Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Voltron Legendary Defender Comic reviews. This one's going to be for issue number 2, as well as issue number 3. Both of them were released earlier on this week on Wednesday, which I thought was an interesting thing to do, to just have, like 2 consecutive issues of a comic come out on the same day. That combined with the fact that, as far as I'm aware, issue 4 is out in like 2 weeks, and then issue 5, which I believe is the last issue of this second volume of the comic series, is coming out like the last Wednesday in November. It means that like this comic series is going to be done before the end of the month. So it really kind of speaks to the fact that this was delayed a lot, and now it's being kind of like really rushed out. The one thing I will say though before we get into it is that immediately issue 2 and 3 are both massive improvements over issue 1. If you watch my review for issue 1, you probably saw that I was very critical of this. I did not like this at all. The art was a bit disappointing, and then just everything about how it was kind of written and presented, not very good. This, huge improvement. New artist, so much better than the previous one. Definitely, I think the new artist like a kind of a match for like the digital art chefs from the first series, and then the story, they actually managed to, I think, turn things around and really save it going forward. So it's kind of moved from being a like don't touch this comic please to like actually I'd say start picking it up now. Obviously at this point probably wait for maybe the trade paperback to come out, the collection, but still pretty good. So the covers are also really nice. It seems like they're doing, with the regular covers for the series, they're doing a lot more kind of conceptual kind of covers. So this is a really unique one of just, basically it's an outline of Voltron made up of cut-ins of the different characters, obviously in the right position. So obviously you have like Hunk in yellow in the position where the yellow line would be, Lance here, Keith, Paige, Shiro. It's a really, really clever idea for a cover that works very, very nicely. The issue 3 cover here is back to, I suppose, more standard stuff in terms of just a big Voltron shot, but it's a different artist, and while maybe I'm not a big fan of some of the excess lines going on like in the middle of things that maybe you can't quite make out on camera, but you can sort of see it there in the middle of the shield, the kind of weird crack thing in it. And it kind of runs throughout the entire artwork. Not really sure what the idea behind that is. Cover, and the cover is apparently by the main artist, unless I got like a variant cover, which I don't think I did. So that's a bit weird, but still excellent overall. So yeah, let's get into it. So obviously we're dealing with these cat people. The Dabhao the people of the Dabhao. Again, one of my main things with the first comic series is just like, wow, not having the audio here to tell you how to pronounce things. Voltron has one of the most kind of like confusing, just when you see it written out, kind of names of people to say. But obviously we ended the last issue with the death of the leader of these people, and now they're kind of being led by his 2 daughters, and then this kind of priestess character in a way, or so on. But anyway, they're going to find like their sacred hunting grounds, which they've kind of been like forced out of, and they have to like travel through these wastes. And we're basically setting off on a journey very similar to the first comic series, where it's like, here's the thing, we'll have to travel here, 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 and here. There'll be challenges along the way, and definitely the impression I get from issue 2 and 3 is that that's the approach they're kind of taking with the comic series, is that the comics are more representing what you'd maybe usually expect from a Voltron show, because the actual seasons are very different than like your standard Power Rangers or your standard Voltron show, which would be more of a just monster of the week type thing. Here's a crazy alien, Voltron forms to take it out. Here's this, the team forms together to do this. And there's only really like a couple of episodes of the series where we really saw just a random monster or a random enemy appeared for Voltron to fight, because it's been so plot focus, which has been an improvement for the characters, but maybe has made some of the fights feel a little bit samey. So the comics are definitely the chance to just have these very unique and different kind of enemies for Voltron to fight. So we get the idea that, you know, what happened here is that their people, the Dov, who were betrayed, and they say the Galra had been killing off the prey in our homeland, or even some of our people, and they have to travel back to their hunting grounds. And it seems like they were betrayed by this guy called Krupump, who initially was kind of helping them, but kind of ended up betraying them and kind of leading the Galra straight through them into a trap, and which killed off a good amount of their people. And we see the team come together to help them, and you know, the two kind of sisters, Kuvir and Qatar, I think are their names. The two sisters basically pledged their loyalty to Voltron here, and they also swear their marital allegiance to Hunk until they get to the you know, basically it was until they die, more or less. And it's this idea of like Hunk is just completely shocked that he's basically now in this like forced marriage arrangement with both of these kind of cat people. And they basically say that the reason for this, why they've chosen Hunk, is that because you are the largest paladin of Voltron, size and strength are the most important attributes in our society. And that's what they want. And Hunk is obviously freaked out the entire arc of like, he has these two girls now obsessed with him. Little surprised they didn't really mention the whole Shay relationship here. I would have liked that to have been brought up a bit more, but you know, you can't have everything. Just, you know, having Hunk in another kind of romance kind of centric thing, I would have liked that to have been brought up, but they don't. And we get some really fun moments, and I think this is another thing about like why these two issues are so much better than the first one, of just Hunk comes in to talk to Lance about basically this whole issue that's now happening, that he's effectively like engaged and stuff like that, and Lance has been annoyed initially, just like, did you come to rub it in that the girls are all after you? And he's all like, I'm not ready for that, I don't even know what to do. And you know, Lance just says, you know, boy, do I know your pain. Well, you came to the right place for love advice. Let me give you a rundown of Lance's Guide to Love. And then we just cut from basically a standard comic page, you know, Hunk and Lance talking, to, we just get this page, which I initially thought was just an ad because of the format of it, but then I read it and I'm like, oh, it's actually just, this is Lance's Guide to Love. And it's such an awesome page. It's like, fans of Lance as a character, like, just buy this issue just to have this page. And on the side you get this kind of feature. It's called Lance's 5 best pickup lines. The first one is, can you do magic because you just put a spell on me? The second one, are you an alien because you're out of this world? The third one, do you have a star map because I'm totally lost in your eyes? The fourth one is, what class did I fail that we both share now? Chemistry. Then the last one is, the only thing I hate about space is the one between us. And then it's really funny, just the whole idea of like what he talks about. It's your typical kind of over the top Lance stuff, but it's just really funny. You know, falling in love is no simple task. Sure, there are many beautiful women out there that catch your eye, but what makes love so special is that it's about a connection. It's more than skin deep. Love is about being vulnerable. Love is about finding your best friend. That's why you have to create opportunities to fall in love, and it's like, do activities together, you know, ask each other questions, and so on. He's just giving him all the advice that Hunk doesn't necessarily want, because he kind of wants to get out of this situation. But anyway, they're forced into action because we get the reveal of our big monster for this issue. And one thing that these comics have always done really well has been, there's usually 1 or 2 per issue amazing double page spreads, usually featuring like some giant, you know, size thing. And here we get the reveal of this giant alien monster thing, and there's the castle down the corner, giving you a good sense of how big it is. And it's just crazy how massive this thing is. It's like bigger than planets. So they form Voltron, and they're told that it's this thing called a Mangadni, Mangadni, I don't really know how to pronounce it altogether. Mangaadnii, and it's explained here by one of the cat people that they breathe electricity and destroy worlds. And it's basically it's so big that it actually has like a gravitational effect on them, because it's obviously the size of a planet, and we get to see it shooting out its electricity and so on, but they can't do anything to it because it is so big. Like, none of their weapons are doing anything. You know, the Dabhu kind of jump into action to fight it as well, and Hunk gets this sense that actually he thinks there might be a bigger one of these things, you know, out there, and it's not too far away, and they sense the gravitation and so on. They're about to kind of, you know, get eaten basically by it, when, you know, Hunk kind of begins to figure it out, and kind of you know, as they kind of basically what happens here, the kind of priestess character puts this kind of spell on the Mangadni, which kind of pauses it in place for a little bit, which gives them a chance to think. And Hunk begins to figure out that I analysed the electrical screams, and it seems to be crying. That this thing, he thinks that this one might actually just be a baby, and it's looking for its mother. So obviously we see the solution is that they're going to bring this giant thing back to its mother, and that will be how they solve the problem that they have of not being able to, you know, defeat it. And so we get that situation here. They manage to like move it back while it's kind of in stasis kind of mode back to its mother here, who obviously the size is crazy in this scene. In that, like, yeah, there's, I don't know if you can quite see it, but there's like a tiny little dot there that's this kind of arrow is pointing towards, and that's Voltron. And then Voltron's obviously pretty big compared to the baby, and then the baby is tiny compared to the mother. So it's just crazy size comparison things. And then I suppose the main thing there would be like, there's a sun off in the distance, and this thing's like bigger than it. Even in perspective, it's like this crazy size difference. But, you know, the thing thanks them for returning its kind of daughter, and everyone's impressed with Hunk for kind of you know, realizing this. And this actually, I suppose Hunk was thinking that this more kind of, I suppose, sensitive solution to this problem in terms of battle would actually maybe turn the two sisters off him, but actually they like this because, you know, they like this you know, sensitivity, and one of them says, your sensitivity and nurturing nature has awoken something in me. It has awoken something more in me, as you see their hearts are now, their eyes are now hearts, in that they're even more impressed with Hunk. And Hunk's obviously, what he says here is, I guess I was just being sensitive to its nature, you know. I understand if you think that makes me too weak to be your husband, maybe we should just be friends, but obviously it goes the other way. And we just end the kind of issue with this idea of we kind of cut away at to this Galra command post, and I believe what this is that this is that Crumpup guy or whatever it is who betrayed them, and then here's the Galra commander who is actually the one who maybe did all this stuff to them. So I think he's not even mentioned in issue 3. So we'll move on to that anyway here. This one is definitely interesting for sure. I think issue 2 is probably my favorite of the 3, but I like a lot of the elements they introduce in issue 3 as well. Basically, like, Keith becomes a little bit more of a focus in this issue. He kind of goes off to train. We get the kind of priestess Galra kind of a character, Galra, cat person character talking to Karan about like Alfor and so on, when the enemy that like arrives to fight them here is basically like the spirit of this legendary Davdabhu kind of warrior from the past, who is kind of, he's basically made of like pure energy and can kind of like separate himself off and so on. And what happens is that Keith has gone off to basically train in the training room, and he's doing some sword practice, when this other Davdabhu guy comes in and basically says, you know, like, oh, you're the only like true warrior of the paladins. I would like to, you know, test my you know, sword skills against you. And it's this weird thing of like, Keith's not really sure if he's just asking to spar or train with him, or if it's actually meant to be like a fight to the death. But it quickly becomes apparent that it is basically a much more serious fight, that Keith could be killed. And we see him use like his paladin sword in combination with his Galra knife to fight him off, but there doesn't seem to be any real kind of advantage taken in the fight. Everyone else kind of sees it on the monitor that he's downstairs and kind of realizes that, oh, this is a big problem, we need to kind of fix this. And the spirit guy's name is revealed to be Gantamor, and it turns out that the guy Keith was fighting was like a kind of physical manifestation of this guy. So that's one thing he can do in addition to like the giant energy projection stuff. They see they see him arrive, and then like he kind of evaporates back out of the ship. And the explanation for him is that it's said that he was the first of the Dabdabhu to discover the sacred hunting grounds. Now his spirit stands guard to protect them from outsiders. I thought he was only a legend. And yeah, outside we see that he's like giant form now. And the stories say that he responds to the size of the force against him. If he's met with a single combat, he is one. If he's met with an army, he is many. And that's kind of the problem that they have to face. There's a weird point where like Karan just like contracts this virus and is suddenly like super sick. It becomes a plot point much later on in the comic, which I'll get to. But obviously they form Voltron to fight this giant energy beast, and we get our big, double page spread, and it's really well done again. This time it's this guy against Voltron, and really, really great sense of scale here again. What's the guy's name again? I just mentioned it, but I forgot it. Gantamor, so that's him. And obviously, again, Voltron can't really do much because it's kind of made of energy, and the more kind of powerful Voltron acts, obviously the more powerful he kind of responds, because that's the idea of how he works. He responds with exactly the amount of force required. And he obviously sends them flying back, and there's nothing really that they can do, but Karan realizes that he might have some way to defeat him, and he heads out on the weird dragon thing that the priestess taught him how to fly. And he basically reveals that what he's going to do is, use the virus that he has against Gantamor to defeat him. So he sneezes on him, and they kind of go for the whole virus thing. Like, a virus is attacking you, and because of the rules around his kind of legendary form, these like bacteria, virus kind of cells are attacking him like by the millions. So he splits himself up into millions of tiny little things to fight off this virus that he's just been given. So effectively he's more or less non-existent now, because he's split up so much to fight this virus. And they don't really seem to establish exactly like, does that mean he's gone for good now and they've like tricked him into defeating himself, or like he'll eventually compose himself back up again. But either way, it seems like they can get past him and enter the promised land. And that's where we kind of get the end of this issue for now, as we're in issue 4, I assume, going to arrive on the hunting grounds, and then 5 will be our kind of resolution to everything. So overall, I think 2 successful issues definitely make things a lot more interesting. As I said, issue 2 I think is my favorite, because I like the hunk stuff with the fact that the girls are now like the 2 cat girls are like want to marry Hunk, and like the weird reasons they have for doing it. I like the Hunk scene where he goes to talk to Lance. Actually, going back to that, there is one thing, I don't know why I forgot to mention it, but very important thing actually with it. And I don't know if we knew this about Hunk before, but he says here, I don't know if I'm like them. On marriage, I'm just a kid. I used to watch my niece and nephew when they were babies, and they would cry all the time, and I didn't ever know what to do, so I just gave them to their mom. I don't think we've ever had any sort of reference to the fact that we knew that like Hunk even had a sister, let alone that he actually has a niece and nephew. So that's a cool little thing, just to get a little update on kind of Hunk about his family. Just because like Earth is so, for the most part, not really brought up all that much. It's interesting to kind of just get this thing about like Hunk, remembering like his family on Earth, and I don't think we've had that before. So I think that's a really nice one that he brings that up in relation to Lance. obviously he's freaking out when he says that, so it's not really presented as like a super serious moment, but still fun nonetheless. So yeah, so far we're 3 issues into this 5 issue arc. It's definitely improved. I still want to see where exactly they go with it. Obviously the open plot points would be the Galra impact on this that they seem to be bringing into play with the Galra commander from the end of the 2nd issue. They have the Crump-Up guy who betrayed them, and I suppose however they resolve ending, you know, the whole romance stuff with Hunk and so on. So there's a bit of stuff to go through, and I'm interested to see what they do. But yeah, I'm glad that they're not taking too long to put this comic series out, because if we actually had to wait like, you know, 4 months from issue 1 to 5, that would be a nightmare to get through this series, I think, because it is, while interesting and well done for the most part in each issue, it is not much content each week, each month I mean. So the fact that they've more or less, in over the space of 2 months more or less, are going to get all of this out, I think is a good thing. So yeah, that's been my review for Voltron Legendary Defender Volume 2, Issue 2 and 3. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the issues, as well as what I had to say about them. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.